on Friday, May the 12th. Brent crude down around 74.5, something like that. It just can't seem to get any long-term traction above 75 these days. We're going to discuss why with three of the best in the business. Let me welcome Peter McGuire, CEO of XM Brokers, back in Sydney, Australia, after his world tour, which included Dubai. Matthew Wright, Senior Freight Analyst at Kepler in London. And Andrew Critchlow, Head of News for Middle East at S&P Global Commodity Insights, also in London. Welcome, the three of you. Let's have a good talk. Let me ask Peter first. On this weakness in crude, the usual suspects are being wheeled out. Weak US and Chinese economic data, though I can't really see anything in either of those countries that has changed significantly. Maybe, some further rumblings in the American banking sector, Pacific West, the latest one in the firing line. So, Peter, what's going on? Why the weakness?
Well, Frank and my fellow guests, I think it's just volatility, Frank. It's been all over the shop. We've seen quite an incredible week if you're looking, as far as big market swings. Structural weakness, I think some were fairly bullish that we would have seen $75 to $80, maybe even in this rally, and it just hasn't materialized. That for WTI, it's well off, and you're broaching that $70 range. So you've got the Chinese numbers, though overall demand still is very, very strong for global, and I'm interested to see how it rolls over the Northern Hemisphere summer with driving season and possibly an uptick. The Chinese numbers are a bit worrying, and they came out, out of the gates fairly strong after Lunar New Year, but they haven't bloomed since then. So US dollar still sitting at 102 for that US dollar index. Currencies are choppy. Smart money found gold, and I think a lot of the trading money may have been sitting on sidelines because of the large swings you've seen in crude oil energy prices. And I noticed that copper was well off overnight, Frank.
You still like gold, don't you, Peter? Tell us about that. Give us the brief spiel on gold, if you would.
Well, last Thursday, Frank, a week ago, we hit an all-time high, 2,072 odd. So it was not a bad number, but then it cratered on the Friday back to around 2008, back at around, I think, 2012 at the moment. But it's been very wild, very volatile. And I think many people you mentioned the banking situation in the States, debt ceiling. There's a lot of big themes that I think macro themes that are going to show gold to see it better days ahead over the rest of this year. Number of big banks are forecasting 2,200, even 2,300 for some of them. So it may materialize. We'll just have to see where it goes for US dollar and whether we see some major, dislocations to the market with debt ceilings, Biden and Congress.
Peter, over in your part of the world, I read that the Australian Trade Minister is or was in Beijing to talk trade with his counterparts there, and full trade relations have been resumed or are being resumed. Tell us about that. And, is that a straw in the wind possibly for US-China relations?
Well, I think first off, Frank, China is reliant on our natural resources and many other commodities. So there's the first part. And as Andy said, the numbers that were achieved in March were nothing short of outstanding. The biggest ever. And it's also from a manpower standpoint, I've got numerous friends that work in that sort of area of the world, northern parts of Western Australia, and the demand for manpower is enormous. So everyone that wants a job gets a job in Australia, and our unemployment is at nearly record lows. So it's strong economically. We're bringing in, they say, 400,000 people to our shores as net migration over the next 12 to 15 months. And so that's another part of the whole equation. As far as our trade minister over there, yes, to smooth the waters, to get us back on track after the COVID situation, and probably just to settle down maybe some angst that was on Main Street with our alignment with the US and so on. So I think that's just a natural part of doing, a trade talk business, Frank, at government level.
Yeah, exactly.
Peter, from your point of view, from a layman's point of view, can we think about the possibility of a Russian defeat, or at least a reverse serious enough to force Putin to some kind of negotiation, some kind of climb down?
Well, I mean, I sit here from Sydney, Australia, probably one of the most remotest parts of the world, Frank, compared to where you guys are sitting, and certainly into Russia. And we're concerned about it. But when you present that argument, I don't know how it's going to end. It's just protracted. It just keeps on rolling along, and I'm not sure what the end game is. And this is the story. I mean, I listen to Andy, and and I'm conscious of what's going on with all the media presentations, and I just don't know what the end game is. I'm not sure. I scratch my head. They're still getting stock out as far as crude and energy. They're still able to do business to a fairly large degree. And where does it all end? What's trying to be achieved here? That's the issue. When I look at it from a timeline perspective, how does it end?
It's an existential thing for Ukraine, I would suggest. But Peter, let me come to you for a final word. Of course, if green hydrogen does take off as the fuel of the future, it will need a global trading system, a global market to make it work. From a market point of view, have you given any thought to that?
No, I haven't, Frank, but I'm sure that naturally clearinghouses and futures exchanges and how that all integrates into, from a commercial side of it, speculators and the commercials, it'll just be I think another form of contract, if that's how it, I can't see the futures industry necessarily capitulating in the foreseeable future. So I feel as though that would be a normal mechanism for transaction, and that's the way of doing business. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I very much like. I recall a book. I had the good fortune when I was at Wharton in 2004 to have Jeremy Rifkin present, and he came in and he wrote a book on the hydrogen economy, and it's just so interesting to see it 20 years later, and it's starting to gain even more traction. So yeah, let's see how it all plays out over the next 10 years.
Yeah, let's see. Well, look, guys, thank you very much indeed. What a really interesting discussion on a wide range of things. So Peter McGuire, thank you very much. Matt Wright, Andy Critchlow too. Very nice to see you again. I'm off to read all about the Battle of Kursk in 1943, and we will talk about this again, I'm sure. Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend, and I hope we speak again soon.